Okay, so recently I just hit 300 subscribers and I told you guys that I would post for a week straight and make videos. Well, that didn't happen. Here we are 5 subscribers later and I'm making this video. Now that I have reached 305 subscribers, I want to say thank you because I never thought we could gain just over 100 subscribers in a little over 4 months, and I'm sorry that I didn't hold up my end of the deal and post every day last week. We planned a last minute trip to Kennywood and I really wanted to enjoy the start of my summer with family and friends and not stress over YouTube. I promise from now on, throughout the entire summer, I will be more consistent while uploading. So, for 305 subscribers, let's talk about my favorite roller coaster, Intimidator 305. I thought this is more my style, so for the 300 and 300 subscriber special, I will be doing this instead of posting for a week. I am finally now talking about the coaster that has held my #1 spot for just about 3 years. I don't really want to make a review because I know you guys have probably already seen 1,000 of those by now, so let's just talk about it. For over a year now, I've been working on a script and trying to make the first official Coaster Talk video, and I think that my favorite roller coaster would be a great place to start. Now, if you don't know what I-305 is, get out. Just get out. No, I'm just kidding. Intimidator 305 is a 305-foot Giga coaster located at Kings Dominion. Giga is a term given to all roller coasters over the height of 300 feet. Intimidator 305, or I-305 for short, opened to the public back in 2010, and I was very lucky to get my first rides in 2018, when our family booked a trip to Kings Dominion. At the time, this was by far my most anticipated roller coaster, and I cannot wait to ride my first Giga and arguably the most intense roller coaster in the world. As we finished up Dominator, we started to head back to the NASCAR theme plaza, which I-305 is located at. As we pass Volcano and Flight of Fear, you see this massive bright red and yellow coaster tower into the clouds. My first impressions of this ride were me just standing there with my jaw on the floor, and I was totally ready to ride the coaster advertised as the meanest and baddest coaster in the world. Alex and I got in line, and with only 2 trains to wait, we decided to get in the second row. The massive train pulled into the station, and there's no way I could prepare myself for what I was about to experience. This coaster looked absolutely amazing, and now it's time to see if it lived up to the hype. The ride starts out with a man telling all the riders to start their imaginary car engines. Start your engines! Then you start to skyrocket as a cable lift takes you to the top of the 305-foot lift hill in about 20 seconds. This lift hill was insane and really got the whole ride off to a good start by upping the intensity to what was about to happen. Next, you crest the hill and plummet down a 300-foot drop at 85 degrees, which is 5 degrees short from being completely vertical. Now, this was a crazy drop, and up until that point, I haven't been on anything to that magnitude. The only coaster I could compare it to was Skyrush. While I still slightly prefer Skyrush's first drop, just because it's a little bit more violent and more intense, I-305's was still incredible. After the first drop, I experienced the most intense moment on any roller coaster ever. This turn. On this turn, I did gray out my first ride, and on later rides I even blacked out in the back row. Now, blacking out on a roller coaster isn't a bad thing, as I only temporarily lost my vision until the crest of the next airtime hill, which was only a few seconds. This was so extremely intense that when the ride first opened, they had to entirely reprofile the first turn because riders would consistently black out. About halfway through the massive turn, you start to rise into the next element, which is a massive camelback airtime hill. This hill is exactly half the height of the first drop, so it offers some crazy violent ejector. Although the airtime is strong, it gets dampened by the over-the-shoulder restraints I-305 has, which are crucial for the next part of the ride. After exiting the airtime hill, you go back down to ground level, which is where I-305 will spend the majority of the rest of the ride. You start to unbank from the turn as you go into this slight pop of airtime, and then bank back to where you were previously to continue the turn. This is truly an interesting element, and you take it around 80 miles an hour. Even though you are traveling that fast, you are able to feel every part of the element. Next, you enter this turn that is nearly at ground level. You experience positive G-force through this turn at nearly 75 miles an hour. After this, you go into one of the craziest elements of any coaster. In this video, I'm going to call them snaps, but you can call them whatever you want. The train is nearly banked at 90 degrees, and then you quickly bank right again at 90 degrees. This is where the over-the-shoulder restraints come into play, as it keeps riders upright during these wild elements. The snaps on this ride are crazy, offering high G-forces along with a little bit of airtime, offering this incredible feeling that only riders of I-305 know. After the first snap, the train goes back down to ground level and through a partial turn only to do what you just experienced again. The train rockets through the second snap of the ride, this one offering almost an identical experience, just a tad bit slower and not as intense. After the second snap, the ride enters this 180-degree turn. This turn, much like the one earlier in the ride, offers high positive G-force and slams the riders into their seats. This turn also acts as the turnaround on the ride. As you enter the next airtime hill, it runs right underneath the lift hill. This airtime hill does offer weak ejector or strong floater, as it is trimmed and the train dramatically slows down after it. The next airtime hill offers a nice consistency of ejector, as there is no trim on it. Then after that, you hit the third and final snap, and this one being the craziest arguably. After that, you go up into a turn and hit the final brake run, and that concludes your ride on I-305. So now that we went over the layout of I-305, you might be asking yourself, okay, Michael, that was good, but still, why is it your favorite? Well, I'll tell you, as an enthusiast, I prefer negative G-forces or airtime to positive G-forces, where you feel much heavier than you actually are. I like airtime more because the feeling of weightlessness, for me, is cooler than the feeling of being heavier, up until a certain point. I-305, you see, crosses the point where I like positive G-force more than airtime. Even though the ride offers a variety of crazy ejector, we all know that it was built to stay low to the ground and be an extremely intense ride. The pure intensity of this ride and the fact that I feel like I weigh 500 pounds along with blacking out trumps any other sensation a roller coaster could offer, especially airtime. We coaster enthusiasts, we're just like bugs, and I-305 is a massive bright light we all flock to. I mean, the fact that this ride is so intense that you black out and lose your vision sounds so freaking appealing to all of us. This is the biggest problem with the ride though, because normal people don't find that appealing whatsoever, and they might even find it a bit scary and end up skipping the ride. This results in shorter lines, which is good for enthusiasts but not good for the park because they are not making a return on their biggest investment yet. No riders also results in empty trains, which means that because of the trim you have a very slow second half, weakening all the forces that you could feel. That airtime hill is truly the worst part about this ride, and the only defect that I can find, as it affects the ride consistency. My first ride on I-305 in row 2 was with a pretty packed train, and for most of the 12 rides that I did get on the coaster, it was a similar story. But I have ridden it with nearly empty trains, and I did see the worst of the trims, and how they affected the ride. Even though this one element is still a little flawed, it is such a crazy ride. Like I mentioned, I got 12 rides on this coaster. I got 4 in the front, 4 in the back, and 4 in random middle seats. The back row was such a wild ride, making me gray out most of the time. On a couple of rides, I did get to experience a blackout, which was crazy. In any row, it is so hard to keep your hands up and look around because the ride is just that intense and forces your hands down. The ride goes well over 90 miles an hour, so the entire ride, your head is pinned to the back of your seat like on an Intamin accelerator like Storm Runner. The pacing of this ride is also crazy. The ride stays so low to the ground and keeping its speed so well that you never have a chance to catch your breath until the very end. The closest thing I can compare to is Skyrush, but even then I-305 is still on a completely different level than Skyrush. While Skyrush tries to amputate your legs, I-305 tries to totally remove your head and neck from the rest of your body.